Hey guys, what's up? It's JT, and this is the Let's Grow podcast. Welcome back. I'm excited for you guys to meet a dear friend of mine. His name is Austin Upchurch. He's got this guy does a little bit of everything. You're going to learn that through our conversation. But above all else, I want you to know that he's extremely passionate about whatever it is that he does because he does it with purpose. And hopefully you hear that through our conversation today. But without further ado, Mr. Austin Upchurch, man, thanks for joining me today.
Jeremy, thanks for having me, man. Anytime I get to spend time with you, and I'm not saying this because I'm on your podcast right now, it really is an encouragement. I try my best to limit my yeses to things that are worth my time. And anytime you ask me to do something, I really want to say yes, because I love being around you. You're such an encouraging person, and I need that in my life. So thank you for even giving me the time with you this morning.
I appreciate that, Austin, man. You gonna mess around and make me blush, right? We need to save some time for that later. But
all right.
Either way, that means a lot. And being a busy father. And someone who works in full-time ministry, and we can talk a little bit about what your role is and what you do and what your day-to-day operations looks like. But being an extremely busy person with a family, beautiful wife, 2 wonderful children, it is important to decide what you say yes to. And I'm excited to hear a little bit more about like how you navigate that, and hopefully some people can grab a takeaway from that on this episode and learn a little bit about how you decide what you are going to say yes to. But man, I'm extremely flattered that you share the same share those sentiments, because I can reciprocate the same things back in return. And folks listening, I'm not saying this because Austin's here on the screen and we're hanging out. He knows that he's someone that I draw inspiration from because of how he does what he does, the man that he is in all of his endeavors. We are building a great friendship, and I just get excited about the fact that I can add any value to him whatsoever. So Austin, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from. That way we kind of know who you are, what you do, and what's important to you.
Well, I'm a Christian first. Believe that Jesus was who he said he was, is who he says he is, and is alive. So that's a pretty big worldview shaper for me. Kind of shapes everything else that I do. And then I've been married to my wife, Jessie, for 16 years. So I'm a husband, and try to do the absolute best that I can at that. Very challenging, as anybody knows. And then I'm a dad. I'm a girl dad. I got 2 little girls, Ellie, who's 5, and Annie, who's 2. And, they keep us on our toes. They keep us having to grow and learn. They are incredible blessings to us. And, man, I love those girls. So, and then, I work. I do stuff in addition to that. I've been working for the Creek Church for the last 10 years in London, Kentucky. And for the last 10 years, I've worked as a person in the media department, really leading the efforts for anything that you can see or hear that our church produces, whether that's on a Sunday or during the week through social media or advertisement or any kind of content. So that's been my focus for the last 10 years or so. And that's looked lots of different ways over the years. Things have changed in 10 years. So that's been a fun challenge as well. And there's some change coming to that for me in my role that it's a little on the hush right now, but I'm excited about it.
Good stuff. So Jesus follower, husband, father, and creative director / possible role change here coming up with Inside the Creek Church. So it looks like full-time vocational ministry for you, Austin. What are some other things that you dabble in? Because, video and photography is important to you. I've seen you in some real estate endeavors. It seems like you're a jack of all trades. Like, what are some other things that you enjoy doing, whether it be generating income for the family, or just things that you enjoy doing as a hobby?
Yeah, so my wife's family has a commercial property business that has been built throughout the generations in her family, and so she runs that now. She manages all of that, but I definitely help in that business, working with the tenants and mostly taking whatever checklist she hands me and making sure I get them all checked off. So that's an interesting part of my life, as we'll talk probably a little bit more. It is also a challenge because of my personality and because of some of the things you mentioned about kind of wanting to go all in and do it all, 100%. I don't have time to do that with this particular part of my life. And so sometimes that's an issue. So that's part of the work. And then, man, I end up dabbling in things, woodworking. I got into epoxy countertops recently. Anything new that I can learn that's somewhat artistic and creative or just different that gets me outside of my box, I really enjoy. I am training jujitsu right now, and that has been something that has really transformed a lot about me and challenged me, and obviously physically, but definitely mentally as well, maybe even more so. So doing that, training, I've kind of parlayed that into training striking and wrestling, and who knows, maybe I'll get in the cage and and test my hand at some MMA before it's all over, and then hug it out with the guy after it's over. But
guys, I gotta tell you all this. Austin had been messaging me for quite some time saying, dude, you gotta come get some jujitsu training in, man. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. And I had an absolute blast. Honestly, not even gonna lie, had an absolute blast. Well, we get there and we're learning some holds, and I mean, I kind of had I had my own frame of reference about what jujitsu was and martial arts or whatnot. And I'd never done any kind of training before, but we get there and we're hanging out and we're learning some moves. And next thing you know, and I tell Austin, I said, dude, I don't even know if I've been this close with my wife in a while. we were in holds and grappling, and I'm like, dude, I mean, you're a big guy, you're a strong guy, but you don't realize like how much body weight really wears someone down until you get in those holds and those moves. And oh man, like still, I've got an elbow that's still sore, a knee that's still sore, a pinky toe that's still sore from that. It was a good time though. Like once you get on the mat and you get to wrestling and you do some of those things, you have a much deeper appreciation for like, wow, there's an art form here. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can seriously get hurt for sure.
True story.
But it was a good time. So, all that being said, Austin, I'm going to backtrack to something you said a little bit a few minutes ago about who you are, what's important to you, because obviously, this is a personal development podcast and we've done some work together. You've helped me on some odd and end projects with video and whatnot. And that I genuinely and deeply care about helping people grow, not at work, but in life, right? Mm-hmm. That I see things from a faith-based, holistic approach of teaching to the whole person, because who you are determines how you do what you do in all of your environments, not just at work, not just at home, not just in the community. But you mentioned a second ago, first and foremost, I'm a Jesus follower. I believe who Jesus says he is. Then I'm a husband, then I'm a father, and then you mention work. Is there a reason why, Austin, you listed things in that particular order about telling us who you are?
Yeah, the reason is because I have to for myself, to keep myself in line. There has to be, there will be a priority hierarchy in your life. There will be a list of priorities, and if you don't put them in order, they'll order themselves. It'll happen. And so if I don't align my priorities in that way, first of all, things start going wrong, because if Jesus is not at the top of my priority list, then I've got the wrong perspective about everything. That groundwork's not laid. So now start making decisions with, let's say work and making money is my top priority. And now I'm making decisions based on something that's frail and that won't last for eternity. That's not as true as who I believe Jesus is. And that shapes my decision into selfish decisions about myself and about taking care of mine and at me and mine, and not really pouring myself into the things that are actually going to bring me joy at the end of the day. And so, making sure that I have those priorities aligned, that I say what those priorities are, rather than letting those things just kind of work themselves out, because they will. And the people closest to you in your life will feel the effects of when you get those priorities out of whack. And eventually you'll feel the effects of them. So knowing what they are, knowing the order of them, having that visually somewhere, saying them that way on purpose, it's a good habit, because that just kind of reinforces that message in your mind and tells you it's as much for me as anybody else, because I do pour myself into things so much that I have a tendency to get way too passionate about things that aren't necessarily worth that much energy and thought, because I want to be the best at everything I do. It's a blessing and a curse. And so having those priorities laid out in that way keeps me focused on, all right, here's the main thing, because I only have so much time. I only have so much energy. I can't do it all. What are the things that if I have to choose, if I have to allocate my energy and my time and my love, and then where are those things? Where's it going first? Yeah. And so that's what that does for me.
Yeah. And, and when I think about structuring my life in that same order, it's that foundation of my faith and the purpose that Jesus brings to my life that gives me the energy and the peace and the focus that I need to pursue all those other things. That's what makes the marriage meaningful. That's what makes parenthood meaningful. That's what makes work ultimately meaningful. Because if not, then we make all those things, I think, about us, in my opinion. And when those things become about us, then it becomes more of a transactional type of setup. What can I get from it versus what can I give? Man, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's a huge nugget that people can wrestle with, even if they don't consider themselves a person of faith. They can think about, okay, if work is too much of my focus, or if I am making my marriage an idol, or if I am putting too much focus on being the best parent on the planet, although knowing I don't have to be the best parent on the planet to be the best parent for my children. If they're putting so much focus on those things, then maybe this gives them an opportunity to step back and say, you know what, wow, this Jesus thing can work for me. So I appreciate you taking time to share that, Austin. A lot of times I'm very intentional about the faith-centered conversations that I have, especially on this platform and in the work that I do, because I always want people to know that I have a genuine, authentic faith. And I want people to see that in someone like you versus people seeing a rigid religion and a rule-keeping scenario that oftentimes they find on a social media space of people pointing fingers and condemning folks, versus hearing about a Jesus who is real, who loves them, who loves us despite we are deeply flawed and are unbelievably messy. And he helps us navigate this life and all the things that we do. You have anything to share about that before we move on, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I could say so much about that. Because that is my number one passion is there's so much misinformation and miscommunication out there about who Jesus is, who God is, how he feels about you. And there's just a lot of well-intentioned, poor representations of Jesus.
That's a great way to put it.
And so I am incredibly passionate about representing Jesus to people, helping them to see him in a new light, helping them to understand that, it is not a set of rules. It's not a bunch of restrictions. It's not, hey, if you take Jesus on, if you hitch yourself to this belief in this person, then your life's going to be miserable, and it's just going to be tough. Now, it's not easy, but it's also not what a lot of people have made it out to be. Jesus wants to have a relationship. God wants to have a relationship with us, and that's a very different thing than a set of rules. And so, yeah, man, I could probably, you'd have to cut me off if I keep going.
That's a good thing, though. That's a good thing. And we're going to swing back around and touch on that also before we close the conversation down, because I do want to hear a little bit more about, how you think as Christians, our response to so much division and dissension in the world. So we'll touch on that before we close down. But one thing that I did want to move to here is, with this idea of being all in, doing things to the best of your ability. You mentioned a few minutes ago about being cautious about what I say yes to. If you're going to be the type of person, first off, have you always been this kind of person, Austin? Because from the outside looking in, I guess I could say I am on the inside to a certain degree with the friendship that we have. I see that you have a genuine desire to do what you do to the best of your ability, and it looks like it's for the right reasons with the right motivation. I think that has something to do with that Jesus thing that we talked about, right? You want to do the best you can, and you want to do right by people, and you want to put your best work in the world. But have you always been this way about, your approach to things?
I think that as I look back, even being a kid, there was something about, the stars aligned, I guess, in this regard for me, that there's a part of my personality where this comes from. My father was intentional to always tell me, hey, if you're going to do something, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it 100%. I don't care what you do. He played sports, my dad, in high school, and that was a big part of his life. One of the things I'm very thankful for about my dad is he would always tell me, hey, you don't need to feel the pressure to do these things, sure, just because I did them. And so if you're going to play this sport, great, play it, but you're all in. If you're playing it, you're going to give it 100%. If you want to go, if you want to be a cheerleader on the cheerleading team, you can do that, but you're going to do it. If you want to be in the band, you can do that, but you're going to do it all in. That's how we do things. So that was definitely instilled in me from a young age. And then my personality type, like I said, plays a part into it. And then when you add the Jesus element into it, about my early years of high school, when I got serious about my faith, now you just have like this trio of dynamite because of my how I was brought up, my personality type. And now I've got a God who loves me so much that he gave everything for me. He didn't pull any punches. He didn't back off or give up or quit. And he's asked something of me to go and do and to share and to put everything into everything that I do as if I'm working for him and not guys. Colossians 3:23, work with all your heart and whatever you find to do, because you're one of my good buddies. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but he always, when you call his phone, his name's Steve Wigington, he has this voicemail and it's basically a little rap he made up. It's super cheesy, but it's just Colossians 3:23. And he says, in Colossians, we're told that whatever we do, work with all your heart, pleasing God, not dudes. But that's it, man. I mean, as silly and cheesy as maybe that is, that's really the foundation of it all. Is what he did for me was so extravagant and so undeserved, and he went all the way. he did it 100%. How could I not reciprocate? I feel compelled to reciprocate. And so having that as the foundation really helps when, the dad ringing in my ear saying, hey, we go all out. The personality, I'm weak, I'm tired, and I'm thinking about not doing the best, or I'm thinking about cutting corners, and I'm thinking about whatever, I'm getting weak. Having that why, that foundation of Jesus and what he did for me, is usually enough to push me on through and stay disciplined in whatever it is I'm trying to do. So,
and going all in, Austin, it requires one, understanding what you're going to say yes to, what you're going to say no to. So that's one component to it. And then I would like to think that there's a lot of people who either back off or give up or walk away from maybe some things that they're doing. And I think the situationally, based on where you're at in life, maybe what you're going through, there are times to hit the pause button, or there are times to cut your losses and walk away. But I think we're living in a space and a time where quitting is a little bit more popular than what it should be, right?
Yeah.
So there's some layers to this that I kind of want to break down, because there's making a decision, and then there's managing the decision and seeing it through. So for you, like, you mentioned, I'm particular about what I say yes to, because I want to make sure whatever I say yes to, I can give my all to. So what are some things that you consider when you think about what you're going to say yes to?
Definitely consider what's my schedule right now. What do I have time for? Do I have time for this?
Yeah.
Number two, is this worth my time? Is this valuable? What value does this add to the life of the person or people that are asking you to do this, or the people who will benefit from what they're asking me to do? What's the value in that? Is it temporal? Is it eternal? That makes a huge difference in how much value I would place in deciding that.
Yeah.
And so, do I have time to do it? And then, what's the value? And based on those, that hierarchy of priorities we talked about earlier, usually that's nearly enough to make a decision about whether or not you can do this or not. And then maybe you bump up against something that you really, really, really want to say yes to, and you just don't have the time right now or whatever. So you carve out time in your schedule. You sacrifice something else now in order to make that happen, or you work it out in one way or another. But the danger for me has always been the reason I have to discipline myself as it relates to saying yes is because of my personality type, because of wanting to be all in. The danger is that I'll say yes to too many things. I have too many irons in the fire. Yeah. And then when you can't do it all, right? And then you end up being a jack of all trades and a master of none. And then I'm super ticked at myself and life because I like doing things right. I like doing things 100%. Now I got, 20 things going on that I'm half button over here. You know what I mean? And that I can't live with that. So if you don't add some discipline into your life as it relates to what you say yes to, what you say no to, then it's really you're just self-sabotaging yourself anyway.
I agree totally. And then once you say yes, now's the where the rubber meets the road. Now I have to put this time, energy, and effort into this project or this idea or this relationship, and I'm going to make it my best. But something a story that I heard recently that ties into the instant gratification in our culture of wanting things to just we want it our way, we want it now, and we don't want to put the time and energy and effort into creating something special or making something meaningful. And it was a story about a family who grew up on a farm, and they were unbelievably rural, or of course, most people would consider them backwards because they're not up with the times. But literally, they had lived on this farm away from like any kind of city metropolis, didn't know anything about city life whatsoever. And the son in the family went off to college, graduated college, and then got a house and a job in the city. And so this farmer travels into the city for the very first time in his life, him and his wife, to spend time with their son. And they walk into this place of work in order to see like where our son is now working at, because he's like now in some kind of tech business or whatever. And he walks in, and then there's this huge elevator. They'd never seen an elevator before, but the guy saw the door open on the elevator. You know, the door's open like this. He saw the door open, and an older lady walks in. The door closes. Moments later, the door opens, and a young, good-looking lady walks out. And he said, "Son, go get your wife, go get your mom. Go get your mom right now." Oh, go get your mom. I would have put her in that mechanism and see what comes out, right? And so, funny, you know, silly joke there, but it's so true about our expectation of getting the things we want instantaneously. So whenever you decide to go in, Austin, what advice would you give for people in seeing a project through, having a vision for something, or working with a group of people, or something that you know you feel compelled to accomplish? Like, how do you stay in the game? How do you stay encouraged? And how do you navigate challenges?
Well, I think the first thing is know your why. Know why you're saying yes to this thing, why you're jumping into this project, why are you passionate about this? Why are you doing this in the first place? And I would say write that down somewhere, because you may need it later.
Yeah.
As you're figuring out, why the heck am I doing this? You're asking yourself that question when things start getting hard. Oh, this is why. And then I would say understanding the concept that discipline is better and greater and more important than motivation. When you start a project, you're so motivated. You know, you're high, you're up, I'm in this. I want this, I'm going to transform my body. I'm going to, accomplish this thing or whatever. And you're thinking about the end result at that point. And so you're pumped up, the adrenaline's running, the dopamine's releasing, you're feeling good. But then, you're motivated, but motivation won't last. There's definitely going to be days. There's definitely going to be times along your journey where you don't feel motivated. And so those are the times when you have to understand the difference between motivation and discipline. And those are the times when you have to choose to do things. You have to choose to behave in a way that your mind and your body is telling you not to, in order to accomplish things that you want to accomplish. Yeah. To me, that's discipline. And that's a different thing than motivation. I think that's a trap that a lot of us fall into is we try to ride motivation, but motivation doesn't last. It comes in waves, and thank God for the motivated days.
Yeah. But
to truly see something through, I think you have to know your why, because that's your anchor. That's the foundation. That's your foothold. And then you have to understand that concept. You have to go in knowing that there's going to be some hard moments, hard days, maybe hard weeks, hard months during the course of this. And if I'm relying on energy and hype and all of that, anything worth doing that's going to have any kind of lasting impact, it's going to get hard along the way. It's not going to be easy, because if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Man, I don't like, but so I think people, though, they think, well, you hear that idea of if you do what you love, if you find work that you love, then you'll never work a day in your life. And we understand what that means. But sometimes I think people are duped into this idea that, if we have passions and desires and we're compelled to do a work, and there are projects that we want to complete and we have a compelling reason why to do it, that it's just going to come easy. And it's not. Like, we have to do things that don't feel good. There are hard conversations in marriages. There are tough decisions as a parent. There are family members sometimes that are let down because of the growth that is taking place in your life, and you no longer staying in the same place that you once were. Like, there's so many aspects about life and work that aren't easy, but because of the discipline to be who we are called to be and to do the things that we want to do in reference to the work and projects that you're talking about, it requires us to make some tough decisions. And there's some not so feel good moments,
Yeah, for sure. And that's like you alluded to, we don't think of pain as a positive force.
And as a teacher.
Yeah, as a teacher. And most of us run from it. But if we, or let's take that a step further. We don't think of failure as a positive thing in this context, right?
Yeah.
And so what that does is that causes us a lot of fear. It keeps us from ever starting things or trying things because, what if I fail? And failure hurts and whatever. I would contend that failure is essential and inevitable if you're ever going to achieve success.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not true of everybody. I've certainly found it true of me. We know these principles in our physical training, right? We go to the gym and we're trying to lift or do something, and we go to failure. We can't get it anymore, and there's a destruction that happens to your muscle fiber, and it hurts. You're sore the next day, and maybe for the next 3 days or 5 if you haven't worked out in a while. But then it rebuilds. And so we understand that principle when it comes to training our bodies physically, that you have to break this down. You have to fail. You have to, in order to build back up and to learn. But for some reason, we resist that so heavily when it comes to our emotional growth, our spiritual growth, our relational growth with other people. Man, if I think if we would embrace the uncomfortable, some often painful conversations we need to have with people, 90% of the things that are going wrong in our life might be transformed. But we're afraid of it because it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's painful, and we don't want to bring up. And why don't we just give it a shot? Why don't we try to have the conversation? If we fail, we learn from it, and we try it again next time.
Yeah, that's right, man. It's and again, that comes from our perspective on failure, and not everyone sees failure. Not everyone sees difficulty in that light. And hopefully someone maybe listening to this podcast today can pick up on that. You don't have to be scared of not getting the result that you want. Mm-hmm. Not getting the result you want is typically just that, not getting the result you want. The most important thing is, what are you learning from it? How are you growing through it? What adjustments are you going to make? How are you going to allow that to help you grow as a person? Well, Austin, out of respect for your time, I want to work to close things down, but I do have a couple of quick questions to ask you here that I think can help us wrap up today and in this conversation. You mentioned your dad being a source of encouragement early on, kind of helping shape the way that you process things and the way that you do work and approach, the endeavors of your life. But who are some other people who have been a source of encouragement for you, and who are some folks that you look up to that you can look back on, or that you look to today and say, you know what, I'm a better me because of them? Yeah,
man, there's so many people that deserve to be mentioned as I think about this. So my dad, for sure, invaluable lessons that he taught me and instilled in me. So put honor where honor's due there. My wife, Jessie, We were high school sweethearts. We met way back when. And so I probably need to say her next because she encourages me daily. She pushes me forward. She gets me. She understands my personality type. So, when she needs to just kick me in the rear, and she just does it. And I say, yeah, you're right. Let's go. So she's an invaluable part of the success of our family and anything good that I do. From there, I had a student pastor when I was young named Greg Thompson, who was incredibly influential on my life, who shaped a lot of my faith and my drive and passion for Christ. There were people who poured into me, like a guy named Dustin Finnison, who, when I was young and because of wanting to do everything and be all in, and I was aggressive, and man, I made so many mistakes. I said things in the wrong way and offended people and, all these things. And a guy like Dustin, who was older and more mature, he kept me around. He kept pouring into me and gave me opportunities to grow in those areas. So big part of my life there, Dustin Finnison. And then a guy named Jim Holton. He's much older than me. He and I developed a friendship over the last 10 years. And, he's got a family. His kids are grown. One of them's married, has 2 kids. So we're in way different stages of life, right? But man, he has been a mentor to me. He's been an encourager to me. He's been somebody that I could pick up the phone and text or call anytime and say, hey, this is going on. What do you think? And I can think of one time in particular where a situation was going on. I explained it to him. I felt like I was calling him to get confirmation that the way I was feeling was correct.
Yeah. And
the other end of the phone said, you think your pride has anything to do with this? And I was like, well,
that's not what I was expecting.
Maybe. Yeah. So Jim Holton, our pastor, Trevor Barton, has been a huge influence in my life and my spiritual journey and pushing me forward there, helping me to grow. Man, I almost feel bad for mentioning anybody's name because I'm sure there are so many people that I owe any amount of success in any area to. Ian Lawler, my jiu-jitsu coach, but he's so much more than that. Honestly, I know it probably seems, you got a 35-year-old man on your podcast right now who's talking about doing martial arts and jiu-jitsu and what in the world's going on. But in all sincerity, Ian and I have developed an incredible friendship, and he has been such a source of encouragement for me. And he knows how to motivate, but he loves me, man. He cares about me, and I reciprocate. And that relationship has been one that I needed in a big way. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And just hearing you, Austin, I could listen to you. I could listen to people build other people up in their life and edify folks and talk about what they've learned from folks or the value that people add. I could listen to that for hours. And one of the main reasons why I like to ask that question to most guests on the podcast is because I want everyone to know that none of us have gotten to where we're at today all on our own. I can't stand when I hear people say they are a self-made success. Get out of here with that. No one, everybody needs somebody, and life is a team sport. And whenever you understand the importance of relationship and community, you realize that I am better off because of other people. And I have to start making decisions about the people that I'm going to put myself around and the people that I'm going to allow to influence my life and the people that I'm going to seek wisdom from and mentorship from. But all that being said, man, you and I, you're the kind of person, Austin, you're the kind of friend that we could talk all day long.
True that.
But in closing, this space that we're in of going all in, working hard on something, giving your devotion to something, is there any words of advice or anything on your heart that you would share with our listeners today? If maybe someone's feeling a little discouraged in this endeavor, maybe things aren't going the way they want them to go, or life has been a little difficult because of how weird the last 12 to 18 months have been, or maybe they haven't been very disciplined. What are some words of encouragement you could offer, our listeners today?
I think first of all, you're not alone. The experience, whatever you're experiencing, we all have been there in some way, shape, form, or fashion. You and I are sitting here talking about being disciplined and doing all these things. I've got a youngin' running in. Sorry. Come here, girls. Be quiet, okay?
That's okay. That's great. Miles will probably jump in here in a few minutes.
They're waking up. But I think being encouraged and knowing that that although we're sitting here talking about this like we've got it figured out, it's a work in progress for all of us. Mm-hmm. We fail, we mess up, we get into situations we're over our head and things aren't going the way that we wanted them to. We get discouraged, and it's a work in progress. So I would say that just because, hey, don't get discouraged. Don't think you're isolated. Don't think you're alone in this. We've all been there. We all maybe are even there now. Embrace where you're at, because you may feel like you're close to the bottom in terms of the situation, but oftentimes, now this definitely sounds cliche, but it's the night's the darkest right before mm-hmm. dawn. Yeah. And you may be on the brink of a breakthrough, or you may not be catching or accomplishing what you set out to, but you might accomplish something better. Who are we to assume that the things that we're chasing are, and the end results we're always chasing are the best. That's a pretty arrogant assumption. And so a lot of times failure in accomplishing what we set out to does not equal failure in the big scheme of things, because we might find something better. We might accomplish something greater. We might learn something along the way that moves us into a new chapter or a new season or a new challenge that accomplishes even greater things in the world and in eternity. So don't be afraid of where you are right now. Don't worry. Don't over stress about it. Because you never know what God's orchestrating, what God's working out behind the scenes. And I know one thing for sure, that as it says in James, that we can count it joy when we experience trouble and trials and pain, because those things work in our life for our good, to make us complete and mature and not lacking anything. That's a development process. And so be encouraged if you're in that situation. If you're in a situation where maybe you are discouraged right now and it's not going the way you wanted it to, or these last, 12 to 18 months to 2 years has just rocked your world. The best way maybe to look at it is that maybe God's just shaking things up. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's just something new coming.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Man, I appreciate that encouragement, Austin. I know somebody felt that for sure. Girls, good morning.
Say good morning.
Yeah. What an awesome way to close down our podcast today. Because this is real life, Austin. This is real life. And this is why we work to become the people that we are. These are the blessings that we have, things that God has done for us that we couldn't possibly do on our own. And so, man, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your testimony, your friendship, the man, the husband, the father that you are, how hard you work and all that you do. You've provided a great example for me, and you've been a source of inspiration and encouragement. And I know on the Let's Grow podcast, where we talk about not just going through life, but growing through life, I know people have gotten something that can help them grow for sure today. And so folks listening in today, thank you for your time. When you give someone your time, you give them a piece of your life. I know the piece of your life that you gave me in this conversation with Austin, I believe that it has added some value to each of you all. Thank you for being here. And Austin, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Man, thank you, Jeremy. My privilege to chat with you anytime.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, guys, we're going to sign off here. Thanks again for joining us. This is the Let's Grow podcast, your place for weekly encouragement, and we will certainly see you next time.